Birthday presented by the Private Bank, the official bank of your Chicago Fire. We are live here at the Heineken Pub 97 at the Private Bank Fire Pitches. We are each and every week. Fred Hubner along with Paul Tenorio, Frank Klopas will be joined by Arturo Alvarez a little bit later on in the show. Guys, unfortunately, the losing continues. Fourth straight loss. They've dropped 6 out of 7 in a game that you really wanted to get against a team that had struggled on the road. Minnesota getting their first road victory, Frank.
Yeah, tough one, a really tough one because, I think going into that game, we talked about it. It's set up in a perfect scenario. I think it was the right time to come in, and I think to kind of get back on track. This is a team that, didn't win on the road. A team that has given up a lot of goals. We saw a week before that in Seattle how close they came. And again, I think there are moments in the game, I think Paul talked about it, is that they tune off in certain moments in games, But, the question for me before the match, and we talked about it, is how is the Fire going to deal with a team that's going to sit very deep, concede possession, make it very difficult, stay compact, and then try to use their pace in transition, to hurt them. And games like that, Paul, it's all about scoring maybe the first goal. I think they started out with good energy. They just couldn't get the first goal where they can open them a little bit more, and then you saw the end result. They gave up 2 goals right at the first half.
Well, that's been, I think, the biggest problem with this Fire team. I think there have been 2 main issues. Obviously, defensively, you lose 3 starters. That's difficult for any MLS team to overcome. But the goals have dried up a bit, and they lack the ideas to break teams down when teams are sitting deeper on them. And I think we've seen that in Columbus, and certainly we saw that when Minnesota was in town. And, we talked about this before the game, and I said to anyone who would listen before the game, Minnesota's a team that is getting better. And I think that Adrian Heath is a coach who is able to, when he starts to get the guys to believe in his system and believe what he's telling them, to coax a really good performance out of them. And I think the result in Seattle, the way that they played and the fact that they took it to the 93rd minute, created a belief within that team that this can work and we can get results if we play this way and we stay organized. And you saw buy-in on guys who maybe didn't buy in Seattle. Calvo had a much better game. Ethan Finley, again, I think is rubbing off on these guys. I thought Nicholson, he's not a game breaker, but he's going to put in the work for you. Dunladi, much better, finishes his 2 chances where he missed him in Seattle. It was the recipe for a typical smash and grab, and you're right, Frank. If you're the Fire, you needed that goal early on to force Minnesota to come out and play because you're a better team. But until this Fire team starts to figure out how to break down those low blocks, it's going to be trouble.
And that was the key, Fred, because I think the Dunladi situation, and you saw the game in Seattle where, at 1-0, the opportunity was there, where the ball's played behind the back line, and I think the defender slips, and he's going in on goal. He gets a good first touch, and then he misses. And those are those little things that can turn games. And then obviously, they give up a set-piece goal where, Boxall slips and Marshall goes in free. And then they make that change similar to this one, I think a little bit early in that Seattle game. And then you're right. I think maybe a lot, I think that some injuries play a part into that where you bring in Taylor and you're saying, okay, I'm going to sit deep. I'm going to absorb pressure. Maybe they're pushing, Marshall and bigger guys in. They did the same in Chicago, but not as early. And I felt okay. You got 10 minutes to hold off. They did a good job. And I was kind of arguing. I said, at times, if you do it too early, you're going to sit very back, and now you're absorbing a lot of pressure, and sometimes, the wall's going to break, and if you give up that goal, do you have the players to get it back? But it worked out for him. But the key was that Dunladi, the opportunities he got, paid off. I think they really didn't make it difficult for me for both center backs because they sat very deep. They dealt with crosses, and they have, they're 2 big guys. I think the opportunity and the goal with the the minute they got that chance on the break now where these guys, that they're out of the central area and they got to chase guys and they got to defend or you got to chase a faster guy in 1v1 situations, they didn't deal with it well. But it was a difficult loss, and now you got to go on the road and try to find points. They're not, you can't panic yet. You're still in a good spot, but that was a tough loss.
Let's take a quick look at some of the highlights from that contest. A lot of people showed up looking for the Fire to bounce back after their first home loss the week before to TFC. The Fire had some chances in the first half.
No, they did. And this is for me a little bit where, I think as a forward with Nikolic is going in a situation right now is that, look, in this game, I think, Paul, he started off aggressive. They got in some good moments early on, But a moment like that, I think he's overthinking it a little bit. I think there's maybe a little bit loss of confidence because besides that one, okay, he takes the shot, he hesitates a little bit, but there were a couple other moments where he got in good spots, and now inside the box he's looking to cut balls off. He's not being as aggressive, and I think he's overthinking it a little too much.
And we said Dunladi's second goal, and that one in the 45th minute, that's a real killer. Anytime you give up a goal right before the intermission, Fire down 2-0 as they go to the second half, and they had more chances then.
Well, I think at this point, you're just pushing forward, and you can see how many defenders Minnesota has behind the ball. And look, they finally open up a little bit, and it's a nice, quick little ball from Schweinsteiger. But this is a fantastic finish from David Accam at full speed, tight angle. He opens his hips up and finds the far post. Credit to David Accam on this finish. But also you can see, I think this is where the Fire are at their best, and this is where I'd like to see them start to play a little bit more often, try to play quick in transition and get David Accam out and running. And this would have just been a brilliant equalizer if Michael DeLue puts that on frame.
Yeah, that would have been very nice. The Fire lose. David Accam with his 14th goal of the season. He's scored now in a couple of games in a row. Chicago Fire tried to get back on the winning track this weekend. They head back up to Montreal. We'll talk about that. We come back. Also, don't forget the Fire returning home on September 9th as they take on New York Red Bulls this weekend in Montreal. The pregame at 5:30 on CSN Plus with the 6 o'clock kick. Then they take on the Red Bulls coming up on Saturday, September 9th, Pediatric Cancer Awareness Day. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com/tickets. We'll talk more about what's going on with the Chicago Fire. We come back. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Heineken tastes perfect every single time, and that doesn't happen by accident. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster, almost as long as it took me to master this look.
She came to meet a man. She found an angel. Cuckoo, ba-da-ba-shaka. What's his name now? Cuckoo, ba-da-ba-shaka.
Still practicing. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster. There's more behind the star.
The heat will wear you out real quick. And we've been through some hot ones. It's very physical. You gotta take care of your body and stay hydrated because every moment matters. That's why I drink Advocare Hydrate. I've got a job to do.
Oh, honey, it's time.
To go back to Lowe's? Yeah, this Valspar paint and primer in one really freed up the afternoon. Hey, how do you feel about tackling the kitchen?
Ooh, not great.
Okay, well, maybe we could finish up the basement then. I always wanted to get a pool table down there. I'm a bit of a shark.
And your wife is very much a pregnant chameleon.
Oh, what about a bar?
John.
Go, that time.
Yeah.
Clean paint starts here. Save time with Valspar's paint and primer in one interior paints exclusively at Lowe's.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by the Private Bank as we're talking about the 2-1 loss to Minnesota this past weekend out at Toyota Park. Another crowd of 18,000 plus. And Paul, I wanted to ask you, we saw that assist from Schweinsteiger, a great ball, and he leaves it for David Accam. It seems like in the second half of games, we're seeing what we saw early from Schweinsteiger when he first came here. He'd been sitting back a lot in the middle when the team was winning. During that run, but now it seems like in the second half especially, he's been moving up more in the attack.
Well, I think he's been frustrated. I think he's been frustrated with the lack of ideas going forward, with losing. I would imagine this is probably the first time in his career that he's gone through a run of 4 straight losses, 6 losses and 7. I mean, this is a guy who played for Bayern Munich, which was the top dog in the Bundesliga, never had to worry really about losing multiple games in a row. German national team never really lost multiple games in a row. So it's probably a new experience for him, and I think we're seeing some of that frustration. But Frank, talking to people around the league, they really feel like this Fire team was at its best when Schweinsteiger was playing a little bit higher, he was floating out to that left side in that channel that was inside of Akam and Brandon Vincent, and there was this little combination play and pattern play that we were seeing there where Vincent would overlap and come inside of Akam. Akam stayed out wide, and Schweinsteiger would sit in that little channel. And, you know, we saw that on the goal from Akam with Akam overlapping and Schweinsteiger playing there. And I think the more we see that as this season carries on, I think that's when the Fire are at their best. And Schweinsteiger's been dropping in between the center backs more and more often, and I get that he can dictate the tempo. But now that teams are sitting deep, you lose the effectiveness of his passing ability when he's just sitting deep and playing side to side.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the first game that I actually saw this tactical formation where he dropped in between the center backs was early on into the season in the away match against New England, where they got the result there. He dropped at times in between the center backs or out wide, and that kind of created all kind of different problems. I think New England really didn't know how to solve that. They kind of dictated the tempo. He could dictate the game from a deeper spot, and but I think Paul's right. I think that teams played a little bit higher. The Fire had more possession of the ball in areas of the field, but then still with the ability to attack when the space was there. But we saw the other day when he gets forward, because he has that ability to see things quicker than other players, and then with one pass, he doesn't even need to take a second touch to play that pass forward that he did earlier into the season. Where a lot of the counterattacks or the breaks would start. The minute you make a mistake or turnover, boom, he can hit you. And then we saw a perfect play of that the other day.
The other thing, when he was dropping back in the middle of the two center backs, that was also when both fullbacks were getting up. That's when Brandon Vincent was making big strides, and so was Matt Polster. They're not there right now, or they haven't been there.
Yeah, and it's not just about where they are on the field. It's not just about getting forward as a fullback. It's getting forward and effectively creating opportunities. It's being an outlet for the midfielders. It's providing quick passes inside to take advantage of the space when other defenders step to you. That opens up space for players on the inside. I think right now what's frustrating me to watch is that there are times when the fullbacks are overlapping, and it feels like it's lacking real purpose in the sense of when they're on the ball, they don't have their heads up quick enough to look at those quicker combinations. And so the default idea starts to be get to the end line and try to cross it. And that's not what this Fire team has ever been about. I mean, Nemanja Nikolic is not going to win that many headers over some bigger center backs. David Accam is going to win 0 headers. And I think that's where the frustration starts to go. And we've seen it sometimes in these games where Schweinsteiger's waving his arms in the midfield and the ball's on the outside and no one's getting their head up and seeing him open.
But I think earlier on we had, I think in this game you can just see at least the effort of more hard runs, more guys getting in the box. Because early on, if you have only Nikolic going in there with crosses, it's not going to work. But the one thing, going to your point, Fred, you said the outside backs. I think both Duty and Connor, I think they do get forward. They push forward. We saw the one game, Duty again, the assist. For me, it's that the Fire team now, they're dictating the tempo of the game. Teams are dropping off. You're playing, you're taking a lot more risk. You're wide open. But when you lose that ball defensively, you got to be able to defend in 1v1 situations. If you can't do that, if you can't stop the play right away, and then they turn on you and they break on you, and then that creates a lot of problems. And this is what we've seen. You got to be able to defend those wide areas well enough. You got to defend 1-on-1. You got to make some hard tackles, because when you're open up and you lose the ball, a lot of times you're playing 1v1.
And Frank, that comes down to recognition, right? Defensive recognition of transition moments, when to step forward, when to step tight to a guy, to prevent them from beating you with speed, to take the angles instead of trying to run with the man. These are things that you learn over time, and I just think, we haven't seen as much of that from the fullbacks, and sometimes from the center backs as well, where they take the wrong angle, and that creates these openings in this space for guys like Dunladi to make that run where they create the space. No one covers at that angle. Duty gets beat with a little bit of pace. It's a good ball in, but for me, there are multiple breakdowns on that play where it's just a lack of recognition of those moments.
Yeah, it also seemed, the Fire, it seemed like things worked out for them when they picked up Christian Dean. Then they had an injury to Jean Myra. Now Dean is out, and Myra's still not ready to come back.
But for me, for me, that you have a guy also there, Jonathan Campbell, that I think that the kid is a very good defender. He's a good man marker. He's good in the air. He's very tight. Maybe his ability with his feet is not as good as Dean is, but I think defensively, to me, he's solid. And the experience in all the games he played last year, here's a guy that you can count on.
Fire getting ready to take on Montreal this weekend. A 6 o'clock kick on Saturday. Catch it on CSN Plus at 5:30. And then don't forget, Fire return home. They're going to snap that 2-game home losing streak as they take on the New York Red Bulls Saturday, September 9th at 3 o'clock. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com/tickets. We come back, we'll talk with Chicago Fire midfielder Arturo Alvarez. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Go inside the lives of Chicago's biggest sports stars, only on Inside Look, presented by Cadillac. Your questions answered.
They got this big because basketball got this big.
Idols revisited.
They bring the atmosphere and the energy that you need throughout the grind of a season.
And the stories behind the headlines revealed.
I realized so many reasons why I'm back home.
Catch a new interview every month with Inside Look on CSN. Visit csnchicago.com for listings.
$1 window siding and door installation, 102 Pine Street.
Let's go, guys.
It's Feldco to the rescue with $1 installation on all windows, siding, and doors with no money down and no interest until 2019. It's Feldco's biggest sale of the year.
That's $1.
$1 installation on all windows, siding, and doors.
Hurry, $1 installation ends Labor Day. Call now.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
Sometimes late at night I get a craving. And when I get like this, there's only one man who can satisfy my needs. Mr. Sub.
Mr. Submarine is open late every night. Whenever the urge strikes for a tasty sandwich with delicious ingredients on bakery fresh Toronto bread, dive into deliciousness with Mr. Submarine.
Haberman here from Discover Wisconsin. Join me and the rest of the DW crew every week on this station for all things Wisconsin. Find us on social media right now for gorgeous photos and great Wisconsin giveaways. Speaking of free stuff, did you know every month we give away an exciting vacation? This month you could win a prize package to Wisconsin Rapids. Just visit discoverwisconsin.com for details. Saturday mornings at 10 on Comcast Sportsnet.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Fred Hubner, Frank Klopas, Paul Tenorio, the guy in the middle. Arturo Alvarez, nice enough to join us. Arturo, you've been around the league for a long time. We had a lot of fun talking early in the season. Everything was working well. 6 out of 7 losses now, a 4-game losing streak. How's the team handling all this?
It's been tough. I think I've been in MLS for a long time, and teams are going to go through situations like this, and this is the time where we see the kind of character that we have, and we have to show that in the next game. It's been a bad run of games, and unfortunately we're playing Montreal, a team that just recently beat us 3-0, and I think the best way to kind of get back onto better things is going back there and beating them. So I think we definitely have to take this game seriously, and we have to win.
Is there, when you look back and when the team is looking at tape and the way these games have gone, is there something that you're looking at or a couple things that you say, okay, we need to clean this up and we need to clean that up to break out of this funk?
You know what? I think at this moment, I think teams are maybe starting to realize the way we play and the way that we've been more effective. So I think for me, now we just have to make sure that we just have to be more clinical in front of goal. I think teams are not going to give us as many chances as they did in the past, and so we have to make sure that whenever we get an opportunity, we take advantage, because it's something that's kind of been hurting us in the last few games, and also teams have been able to kind of counter on us, and we've kind of been playing a lot of possession in the rivals' defensive third, and somehow they managed to get out and score on us. So we got to make sure that we find that right balance.
What's been the focus? I mean, Arturo, you have a lot of veteran leadership on this team, and I think the leadership that you guys have, I'm sure at some point in everyone's career, you've had some kind of setbacks. What's the important thing for the leaders, going into training every day? What's the thing that you guys need to focus on, and control the things you can control?
Yeah, You know what? I think for the leaders on the team, the veterans per se, I think everyone needs to just focus on their game, and kind of lead by example. I think we have to make sure that our leaders are taking care of whatever we have to do to kind of have the others embrace us. I think in training we have to make sure that we're on top of our game. So a first-year player or a second-year player sees that and kind of just goes with that same mentality. I mean, I think we have to do that in games, and I think that's the way to hopefully get out of this slump.
Is there a benefit at all? You had mentioned how you guys were just recently in Montreal and lost to them 3-0. Is there a benefit playing them so quickly again after that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, there's no better way to go back to somewhere that recently they've beaten you and beat them at home. And one game that comes to mind was last year. When no one thought that we could go to Montreal and win, and we leave the stadium with a 3-0 victory. So I don't see why now we couldn't repeat that.
I guess when you're going through a losing streak like this, there's a sense of wanting to lift yourselves out of it a little bit with mentality too. Is it difficult to stay positive? Do you try to not put a positive spin on the results, but try to stay positive within training looking forward? Or do you have to focus on some of the negatives in order to emphasize how important these upcoming games are?
For me, I think you definitely have to focus on some of the negatives, so they don't continue to happen. I think that's a big thing. We have to learn from our mistakes. Listen, this is professional soccer, and if you make a mistake, you're gonna get called up for it, and you just got to learn from it. You gotta take it like a man, and we got to get better. And then at the same time, we can't lose that happiness, and we can't forget about how well the team has done through now, and we just got to make sure we stick together, and hopefully this Saturday we can turn things back around.
You were by no means an old guy, but you're a veteran on this team. And I know we've talked about this quite often doing this show, not only this year, but what is it with road games? Why is it so difficult winning on the road in this league?
I wish I've had an answer for you. You know what? I've been in part of teams that we've won a lot of road games before, and I've been, part of teams that we just can't, buy a win. So, I think it's maybe a mentality thing, but at the end of the day, I think that's just an excuse. I think we have to be able to put, a good game on the road, make sure that we have a good plan in hand and execute, and if we do that, I think we would definitely win games on the road.
Is it discussed? I mean, I look at these next two games as being just massive, because you look at where Montreal is, you look at where New York Red Bulls are in the standings and where you guys are. This could change the narrative around the team and the narrative around the East. Is that talked about at all, these next two games, and what that can mean?
At this moment, to be honest, I think we're just focusing on the next game. I think we all know it's almost a must win because of the situation we're in now, and the point situation and whatnot. But at the same time, we just have to, if we focus on that, then we're not focusing on the game, and that's the important thing right now. We have to make sure that we go and play well and execute our plan and come back to Chicago from Montreal with 3 points.
Chicago Fire midfielder Arturo Alvarez joining us. He'll stay with us for one more segment when we come back. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
The blades of a combat chopper spin at 380 RPMs. Not even close to an Echo trimmer. Now that's shock and awe. Power on and on.
If you have recently suffered an injury or had surgery, let the experts at NovaCare Rehabilitation get you back to an active lifestyle. Our comprehensive programs deliver the highest level of physical therapy, hand therapy, sports medicine, and work health rehabilitation. Our highly skilled therapists develop individualized treatment plans to exceed your expectations. So, don't live in pain. To request an appointment today, visit NovaCare.com. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
Don't let pain knock you out of the ring.
Our hand, wrist, and elbow experts are pioneers worldwide. You need us in your corner. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today. After our minimally invasive spine surgery, 80% of golfers maintained or improved their handicap. Be treated by the pros to play more like a pro. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today.
What's more powerful than the winds of a Cat 5 hurricane? An Echo backpack blower. So, yeah, it'll clear a path. Power on and on.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by the Private Bank. Fred Hubner along with Paul Tenorio. Arturo Alvarez joining us along with Frank Klopas. And Arturo, you guys go to Montreal. As a veteran, as a guy that's been around the league, how difficult is it sitting there waiting to get in? How do you know exactly when you're going to get in? Do they let you know like halftime, be ready, or is it a spur of the moment thing, like in the 65th minute? Arturo, get ready. How's it work?
It's different in every team. This season it's been personally it's been a little tough. Coming in as a substitution role, but at the same time, you want to help the team as much as possible in any way. There's been times where I've come in with 5 minutes to go, and I happen to maybe play a good through ball or get a shot on goal. So it's it varies. My main focus is stay positive, and I'm playing well enough to know that I can come in and help the team in any way possible at any given time.
Arturo, soccer's been your life for a really long time, since you were a teenager, and so people think, you're just a soccer player, and in this country, sometimes you forget the person and the family behind a soccer player. Born and raised in Houston, you have a lot of family back there. How are they? Are they safe? And tell me a little bit about what this last week has been like for you, trying to make sure everyone in your family is accounted for.
Yeah, it's been it's almost been like a nightmare, to be quite honest. The Weather Channel at my house has been on 24/7. On the phone with my brother, who has my parents with him. Fortunately, they were safe. They stayed dry. Their house didn't get flooded. But it's been if you look at the images, it's been really something that we have never seen before. I know Houston kind of floods pretty easily, but nothing like this. And it breaks my heart to see just a lot of families losing everything, and at the same time, it also helps. It shows me the kind of people that we have in Houston. Just everyone getting out there trying to save lives, and I have friends that are that have boats that are out there helping people, and it's been tough to see, and so I just wish that all the help that the people of Houston can get, not only Houston, Southeast Texas in general, hopefully they can get as much help as possible.
Well, we've seen a lot of people on social media doing things to raise money, to raise funds in different ways. I saw Brian Ching and Stu Holden and those guys are going to try to put on a game that I'm sure you'll be down there playing in whenever it gets set up. But you also want to encourage people to donate, is that right?
Yeah, no, definitely. With Chicago, we talked about a few nonprofit organizations that definitely can get help, and obviously they focus on that type of stuff. And one that I had in mind was the animal rescue, the Humane Society in Houston. I'm a dog owner, and I've donated, and so I feel like some of these organizations are good for this type of situations, and the more the better, because obviously the city of Houston and the state of Texas are in need of that.
Yeah, athletes, it's amazing. And I'm sure you probably on Twitter have followed J.J. Watt. Asked for $200,000 originally. Now his goal's up to $10 million because they've already raised $5 million. It's amazing how an athlete stepping out and all the people that respond to that.
Yeah, I mean not only athletes. I mean it's amazing to see J.J. Watt raise that amount of money, and not only athletes. I've seen people from California, from Miami, just citizens, just first responders. That have gone out and helped. That's something that they don't have to do, but knowing that people need help and they just want to be out there doing as much as they can. I mean, I just I kind of lose my voice a little bit because it's amazing to see.
We were talking. I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I think to Arturo's point. I mean, I think there are a lot of moments you turn the news on at times and you see so many negative things on. I mean, I watch morning news with my coffee and all you see there's bad things on and on and on, and in a difficult moment like this you really see the goodness in people all over the world. It doesn't have to be in Texas. I mean, you said all over in the U.S. Where they come together and their willingness to help someone else that they don't even know, and it shows you in difficult moments that people do come together, and there's a lot of good in people all over the world.
And we've seen images of, for me, some of the people in Florida I follow, that some of the tour guides in Florida that have the Swift boats are loading them up on a truck and driving out to Texas to be able to rescue people. I can't imagine, Arturo, what you're going through. And we were talking, I mean, you're seeing these images on TV. For us, I say highway, you say I-10. You know exactly where that spot is. I say seeing places underwater. You're talking about the soccer fields you grew up playing on that's underwater.
Yeah, we were having this conversation before this, and the soccer fields that I grew up playing since I was 7 years old are completely underwater. I mean, the goals that I would shoot at you can't even see them. The neighborhood where I grew up is underwater. It's. I mean, I don't even have words to describe what I'm feeling, and I just hope that all the families seek shelter and stay safe, because obviously the rain has stopped, but the flooding is still still going, and in some places the water is still rising, and just asking people to stay safe and seek shelter.
Arturo, we'll throw the numbers up again. Thanks a lot for joining us. We know it's a tough time. Good luck this weekend. Head up to Montreal and come back with 3 points, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Arturo Alvarez from the Chicago Fire, nice enough to join us here on Chicago Fire Weekly. We come back, we'll take a look at the Fire as they gear up to take on Montreal this coming Saturday at Stade Saputo, a 6 o'clock start, 5:30 pregame on CSN+. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Hi, Russ for U.S. Waterproofing. Looking for a company to repair your home can be stressful. Look to us, as many of your neighbors have, like Mrs. O'Brien in Elmhurst. We sealed cracks in her crawl space. Or Mr. Weber in Orland Park. We installed a battery backup sump pump. And Mr. Kaplan in Northbrook. He needed structural repair after he noticed cracks in his brickwork. We've helped many of your neighbors. Schedule your free consultation today at uswaterproofing.com. US Waterproofing. A better basement starts with us.
Come on. Excuse me, mind if I sit here?
Not if you want your phone to work.
Let me guess, can't live stream your lobster roll?
And my mobile pay isn't connecting, and I just got an unlimited plan.
Right plan, wrong network. You see, Verizon is America's largest, most reliable 4G LTE network. And now, unlimited plans start at $40 per line. You know what I'm saying? Oh, this is your seat. Definitely. Yeah, just tucking it in. No, I wasn't gonna pull it out.
When it really, really matters, you need the best network and the best unlimited. Now plans start at $40 per line for 4 lines.
Everyone has got a dream. You know what I mean?
Hey, is this our turn? Honey, our turn?
Yeah, we go left right here.
Great adventures are still out there. We'll find them in our Subaru Outback.
Love, it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on all new 2017 Subaru Outback models, now through August 31st.
$1 window siding and door installation, 102 Pine Street.
Let's go, guys.
It's Feldco to the rescue with $1 installation on all windows, siding, and doors with no money down and no interest until 2019. It's Feldco's biggest sale of the year.
That's $1.
$1 installation on all windows, siding, and doors.
Hurry, $1 installation ends Labor Day. Call now.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
It's time for Fire Field Vision, powered by NovaCare. Chicago Fire head out to Montreal. They get ready to take on the Impact this coming Saturday, 6 o'clock start, a 5:30 pregame over on CSN+. 2-2 draw early, April 1st. Just a couple weeks ago, August 16th, a 3-0 loss to the Montreal Impact. And I asked Arturo in the previous segment, but, isn't it an advantage? They just beat the Fire less than 2 weeks ago, and now they're right back at there playing again. Is there an advantage to either team in this?
I think, look, every game is different, and I think the Fire are going there in a different situation. Obviously, it's a big game for both teams. With the games in hand for Montreal, this becomes almost a must-win game, and that's what they're building it out to be. They're putting a lot of pressure. It's almost like a final for them. They're missing some players, so obviously it's going to be a different lineup out there. I mean, they're missing maybe 4 key players: Simon in the back, Piet, Paul, the holding midfielder that I think that's done extremely well for him in the games that he's played. Jamaili is another guy I think that's his quality, but also another guy that takes a lot of pressure from Piatti, and also another guy that can get goals, and then Jackson Hamel, that other striker that comes in. Mancuso, he makes some good runs, but he's not the guy that can finish. So it'll be a different team out there this time, but the one thing you have to know is that I think that you can't forget the last game and that loss. You got to hold it, you got to learn from it, and you got to go in there and obviously manage and take care of the ball better than the Fire did in the last game there.
Well, when you talk about those absences, Frank, I still think with this Montreal team, it's a little bit of a live by the sword, die by the sword mentality. They are very good on the counter. Very, very good on the counter, because when you have Piatti in space, when you have Oduro in space and Mancosu in space, they can beat you. They're all very talented guys. No Jamaili hurts. But when I look at that midfield now, without Jamaili there, without Piet there, they're going to be older. They're going to be slower. Now, very capable on the ball, but defensively to cover ground is going to be much tougher for them. And without Simon there to hold down the fort in the middle of the line, they're much more susceptible. Cabrera, as you know, is very aggressive. And so I look at this game as a game where maybe the Fire benefits from playing at a higher tempo and trying to attack this team through the middle of the field. That Bastian Schweinsteiger and whoever you put, whether it's Solignac, whether it's Deleu, in that spot underneath, that is the area to go after them. You have to keep your defensive shape. But that midfield is going to be slower. They're not going to cover ground as well, and they're going to have space to get in and find the goal.
I agree with you. I think they're still a good team in transition because if Salazar comes in or Oduro with Mancuso and Piatti, I think they're still dangerous on the break. You always have to do a very good job with Piatti. I think you got to make sure that you always keep an eye on him or 2 players, because that's the one guy that can break it down. The midfield is going to be a key. I think you got to test their back line. A new guy coming in instead of Simon, Fisher. You have 2 young guys. Communication is going to be a problem. I still feel that their back line is suspect. Now with a new midfield 3, yes, and I agree with Paul. Good on the ball, but I think if you speed the game, I think their ability now to recover, back and it's going to be an issue, but you still have to be good with the ball. That's one thing that the Fire didn't, because they lost the ball in transition. They got opened up, and then they got hurt going the other way.
And the Fire have a player who, to me, is one of the best in the league at getting it and making that quick pass to beat a team that's not good in defensive transition. That's Bastian Schweinsteiger's strength. We saw him earlier in the year when he picked up the ball, get his head up and play that 60-yard ball, that 40-yard ball into the right pocket of space, where if they haven't recovered yet, now you're off to the races. This is the game to do that. This is the game where, it's what Toronto did so well. Michael Bradley did so well to beat Montreal last year in the playoffs. When they're pushing forward, you get your head up early when you win the ball, and they're slow and they're old in midfield. Can we find those spaces early? This is the game where if Schweinsteiger gets his head up, he should be able to pick out those passes to Akam early on, to Nikolic, to these guys, Deleu, they're going to be there. And that's why I think it's really important who plays in that center spot underneath Nikolic.
Well, and the one thing you mentioned, Schweinsteiger, he'll be there. Dax McCarty won't be there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a guy that a lot of times is in a position similar to that. He's a guy that's getting the ball to the guys up front. He won't be there, so maybe Schweinsteiger does have to move up more in this contest.
Yeah, you do have some options, though. You know, Dax is not there. I don't know where Juninho fits in, where Alvarez comes in. You know, can he play out wide? Can he be another guy in the middle that, you know, especially can penetrate? You know, the training this week with Polstra and Vincent, where do they fit in? How do they play in? How do they do? You know, do they play a role in this game? So we can definitely see some changes. But I do believe, you know, we talk about getting teams in the right moment. I think this is a situation where, yes, I think the Fire, you still have to stay positive. You got to focus. You got to keep working. The mentality's got to be good. You know, I think this is a game where I think they can go in there and get a result from this Montreal team.
One of my favorite things about Matt Polstra as a right back is his ability to bring the ball inside, whether he's carrying it inside or he plays the pass and he makes that run inside and he gives you that extra number there. I think this is a game where that skill benefits, that vision, that ability to have that center midfield mentality.
And then, you know, both. I mean, if Piatek's playing out wide, whether it's Salazar or Duro, they're not guys that are going to track back. They're just looking, they're going to stay up there and they're going to look to hit you on the break, and then they rely a lot on those three older guys now in the middle. They are going to be good in the ball, but I think that in transition, when you make those late runs and they got to cover you and they got to track with you and you speed the game up, like Paul said, I think they can have some issues.
It would be also nice if we get to see Nemanja Nikolic with a few shots. He had 4 shots against Minnesota, only 5 shots in the previous 4 games. So maybe that Minnesota, even though he did not score, maybe there's a way that they can get him on the board and get things going here in the second game half.
Look, for me, when you look at this guy's history, he's a guy that has scored. You know, he's not a streaky striker. So this, for me, has been the longest period. 8 games, it's a lot of games. I think with any player, it plays on your mind. I think he's overthinking stuff. So I think he needs to do the little things, and you're right. I think maybe one goal or one good play or one good team win, we'll get him back also.
The Montreal Impact are missing a lot of players. Unfortunately, they're not missing Piatti. We'll talk about him and more on Montreal. We come back as the Chicago Fire get ready to take on the Impact. 6 o'clock at Stade Saputo this coming Saturday. Catch it on CSN+, 5:30 pregame. And then the Chicago Fire return home Saturday, September 9th. 3 o'clock, Pediatric Cancer Awareness Day at Toyota Park. The fans have been coming out. The Fire need to get a win. They dropped 2 straight at Toyota Park. Go to chicago-fire.com/tickets for that. Back, we'll talk more about Montreal at Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
We don't give up. We don't quit. We keep going. Day in, day out. We fight on. Why? Because we are champions. Be a champion.
Oh, honey, it's time.
To go back to Lowe's? Yeah, this Valspar paint and primer in one really freed up the afternoon. Hey, how do you feel about tackling the kitchen?
Ooh, not great.
Okay, well, maybe we could finish up the basement then. I always wanted to get a pool table down there. I'm a bit of a shark.
And your wife is very much a pregnant chameleon.
Oh, what about a bar?
John.
Go, that time.
Yeah.
Clean paint starts here. Save time with Valspar's paint and primer in one interior paints exclusively at Lowe's.
NovaCare is the right choice for all athletes. As the exclusive provider of physical therapy to the Chicago Fire, we know the importance of keeping you active. Our sports medicine program, along with our movement assessments, aids us in finding your weak link and designing a program for you. We offer a full array of home care products so you can continue your care when you're not here. To request an appointment at any of our convenient Chicago locations, visit NovaCare.com today. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
Chicago Fire Weekly presented by the Private Bank, the official bank of your Chicago Fire. Time now for the Valspar Primer, the official paint of the Chicago Fire. And as I mentioned before we go to break, anytime you talk about the Montreal Impact, you have to talk about Piatti. He's got 7 goals and an assist in his last 5 games, 15 for the season, scored a couple against the Fire. And Frank, you know him as well as anyone. This guy, one of the best players in Major League Soccer.
No, he's a difference maker. You know, he's definitely the one guy. I mean, if you want to stop Montreal, you really have to do a very good job on him. I mean, Mancuso, his movement as a striker is very good. He does have pace. He does. But he's not a guy that really gets a lot of goals. I mean, I don't want him to go Saturday and score one, but his movement is very good. You know, now I saw the last game they played this guy Salazar, you know, because they think maybe he's a little bit better with the ball. For me, Oduro, I don't know what's happened to him this year. You know, I think he's fallen out of favor. But if I think of this Montreal team last year when they went on their run, they brought him in, you know, and they became a team that was very good in transition. You know, they sat deep, and then Oduro played a big part in that, you know, and he's a guy that, you know, he can always hurt you with his pace, you know. But they're missing some guys, so it'll be interesting to see who comes back in the middle, Paul. I mean, is it Donadel? Is he back from his injury? Is it Bernadello? Is it those three playing with Piatti? Is it Salazar? Is it Oduro? You know, they got some pace in transition, but they got some things to figure out because it's a lot of changes to some really key guys with a lot of quality and leadership that are missing.
I mean, right up the spine of this team, right?
Yeah.
Center back, defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder. That's where you like the strength of your team to be. Obviously, Piatti is Piatti. I mean, I think he's going to be the player of the month for August in MLS. 5 goals in 5 games. He's a difference maker. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can't say we're going to man mark him. You can't say we're going to bracket him because at some point in this game, he's such a smart player. He's going to create space for himself, and he's going to get on the ball, and he's going to do something. That's what Piatti does. But I do think you can defend this team differently now because when Jamali is there in the midfield, you can't afford to move your defensive midfielder out towards Piatti because this is a guy capable of scoring goals and creating goals as well. Now he's not there. I don't care who you put. He's not going to be as dangerous as Jamali in that spot, and you can afford to pinch Juninho out towards that left side of Montreal or your right side to try to close down that space for Piatti when he's coming inside on his right foot. That you have somebody there to close him down is a really important part of defending him. And like you said, no Piet in the middle, no Siman. I mean, these guys are the guys that cover ground defensively to allow those 4 guys up front not to track. Well, you take Piet out, the same issues that were plaguing Montreal earlier this season, where they couldn't cover ground defensively, they're going to be back. They're going to be back, and you're going to have some space to work with. You just got to be able to take advantage when those moments are there.
Yeah, and I agree. And then we don't know with Donadel or Bernadello, these are guys that haven't played in a while. Are they healthy? You know, where is their fitness level going to be? They're also missing this guy, Hamel Jackson. He had 7 goals. He's a guy that, you know, I think he comes in for Mancosu. He's a bigger target, more athletic. He's got pace, and he seems as a young guy. He's finished his goals. So I think it's going to be a different team. And also the other thing I want to touch upon, I think it's a place there that if you get on top of this team, the crowd and the atmosphere, you know, I think they put added pressure to their their team there. You know, boos will start coming out. It's not an environment that if they see like that the team is underperforming, they're going to make them hear that, and then that added pressure it can work to their in a negative way for them.
Listen, Frank, I wonder. I mean, this is the team that plays a lot of 4-3-3, and that's kind of the base system. And they let Piatti float. They're good in transition. The right side, whoever's there, Salazar, Dor, you'll play a little high and wide, try to create those spaces. And they've kind of played with that 4-3-3 now with Jamali there, where it almost looks more 4-2-3-1 in a way because he plays so high. Without him there, I think he drops. Whoever's there is going to be a little bit lower in that midfield, and that could potentially be a spot for Schweinsteiger to be effective.
Well, I think with Piet, it became almost because he could cover a lot of ground by himself in front of the 2 center backs, you know, which freed up a lot Bernier and Jamali to go higher up the field, and almost it became like 4-1-4-1 in kind of situation. So now with Donadel, Bernier, they can go back to a 4-2-3-1 where they have 2 guys sitting and maybe 1 in front, kind of inverted in that way. So, you know, look, we'll see. But I think the points that we made, the midfield is going to be for sure an area that the Fire can control. They got to test the back line with new guys coming in. I still feel the outside backs are areas where we can take advantage with Lovitz and Duval board outside. I think that You know, they're not great 1v1 players. You know, I mean, I think you got to put that back line under pressure. You got to make them make decisions because there's a lot of new guys coming in into a team in almost a must-win game for them.
Well, don't miss the game coming up this Saturday at Stade Saputo, a 6 o'clock start, 5:30 pregame. Frank gets to spend his 51st birthday in Montreal. That'll be all kinds of fun.
I wish I was here with you guys. Believe me, the best present the team can give me is a nice 3 points. I would love it.
Snap that losing streak would be nice. We come back, we'll talk about what's coming up with World Cup qualifying. We've been talking about players all around the Major League Soccer not being with their teams. Well, the USA has a couple of big games coming up. We'll talk about it when we come back. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Toyota's National Clearance Event is going on now. Get super low APR financing and great lease offers on the remaining 2017s. Save big on favorites like the reliable Camry, economical Corolla, adventurous RAV4, and more. During the final days of Toyota's National Clearance Event, get 0% APR for 72 months plus $1,000 bonus cash on Camry. Or lease a new 2017 Camry for $199 a month. But the deals end September 5th. Come in today and get yours before they're gone. Toyota, let's go places.
Rain, driving, pounding, soaking. Your home is constantly threatened by storms, causing worrisome basement seepage problems. We've waterproofed over 300,000 Chicagoland homes, and we know how important yours is. Schedule your free consultation today at uswaterproofing.com. US Waterproofing, a better basement starts with us.
When it's time to party, let's face it, size does matter. And I didn't know they made them that big.
Let Mr. Submarine cater your next party. With the tastiest meats, cheeses, and veggies served on fresh from the bakery Toronto bread, everyone will be happy to dive into deliciousness with Mr. Submarine.
Before each week's NASCAR race, enter the Chicagoland Speedway sweepstakes at csnchicago.com/speedway and tell us who you think will win that weekend's race. Then be sure to tune in every Tuesday to CSN as the president of Chicagoland Speedway, Scott Paddock, joins Sports Talk Live. If he randomly selects your entry, you'll win tickets to the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Tale of the Turtles 400 on September 17th in Joliet. Plus, you'll be entered to win the grand prize, a trip for two to the 2017 NASCAR Awards ceremony in Las Vegas.
We had Chicago Fire's Arturo Alvarez on with us earlier today. He is a native of Houston. You can make your donations. There you see up on the screen. And Arturo, I wanted to make sure that money went to not only the children but the animals down in Houston during this Hurricane Harvey. So there are the addresses and emails you can send your donations to. And you can always also go to chicago-fire.com. Check those things out. The Chicago Fire getting ready to play Montreal, but it's World Cup qualifier weekend. The U.S. men's national team, they dropped 2 games, then they dropped their coach. Now they're 2-0-2 since Bruce Arena. And
more than that. 2-0-2 in the qualifiers, undefeated this entire year under Bruce. But they got some big ones coming up, my friend.
Well, they got one against Costa Rica.
Real big game against Costa Rica coming up on Friday, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, they go and right now they're in 3rd place in the Hex. The top 3 qualify for the 2018 World Cup, and they've not been together for a while. I'm going to be interested to see exactly what Bruce Arena puts out there on the field on Friday.
No, the one thing I was talking with Paul, when I look at this Costa Rican squad that they put together, it's amazing to me how many players have played in Major League Soccer at some point or another. But when you look at it, I mean, there's 7, 8, 9, 10 players. You can put a whole, a starting 11 team, guys within the league here. So it's a team that's very familiarized with the league, with the style of play, with the stadiums. So I think that gives them a little bit of an advantage, going in a match like that. So
for sure. And I think you got to look at this Costa Rican team. They're very capable, very dangerous in transition. Even without Joel Campbell up top, they still have speed that can beat you. When you look at Urenia, you look at Ramirez from Saprissa, who can play up top as well. And then you talk about their midfield players. I think they have some quality there. Brian Ruiz for me is still a top player. He's been on the market. I'm not sure where he's going to end up, but then, Rodney Wallace, we've seen how effective he can be with NYCFC. David Guzman, we've seen him with Portland. I mean, very, very capable team here, and they can bring speed off the bench. And so you have to be very good defensively in transition. And I think the fullback position that has been not a problem for the U.S., but certainly one of the question mark areas. This is a game where you need Graham Zusi to play very well at right back. I'll assume that he starts since DeAndre Yedlin is out. And Villafana, who his minutes early in the season against Mexico haven't been there as consistently, and that's something you always worry about as a coach. If someone's not playing and then you bring him onto a level like the international stage with the pace he's going to be facing, how does he respond? And, of course, no John Brooks at center back, so now you're bringing Omar Gonzalez probably in. He's just coming back from an injury. Do you start Gonzalez? Do you start Beasler? There are some big questions, I think, for Bruce Arena in this game.
How about Beasley? I mean, I think the guy keeps getting younger and younger, so you have him that can fill in, because he's always a guy with his experience in games like this. I mean, he's been through it so many times that he's such a reliable guy to throw in there, And then, obviously, I know Lehigh didn't have a great Gold Cup, but, I think that's someone that also might be looking at this opportunity as a last chance to really impress,
He gives me a hard time about Costa Rica. He's bringing up two guys with Chicago ties when he's talking about.
Well, what am I going to say? I'm sticking always to the Chicago guys.
Listen,
sure, why not?
What I'm interested to see also with Bruce is we've seen him play around with different formations: 3-5-2, 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1. I really hope in this game he plays the 4-4-2 diamond. Fabian Johnson on the left side, Darlington Nagbe on the right side, Christian Pulisic up top, and Michael Bradley underneath. Let's see how these guys perform in a big pressure match against a quality team. Because if that's the midfield you think you're going to play in 2018 in Russia, now is the time to put them out there. We didn't get to see it at the Gold Cup. They weren't all there. The World Cup qualifiers, we haven't seen it. Fabian Johnson was injured. Let's get that 4-4-2 diamond out there and see what's going on.
Well, and also, the last time we saw the U.S. men's national team, we didn't see Bobby Wood because he was injured. He's back and playing well, so I'm expecting to see him up there too.
Yeah, Bobby Wood and Altidore together, and then Clint Dempsey coming off the bench. I mean, this is a strong pool for the U.S.
It's a very strong pool, but the one thing that I read today, I went on online and I was reading something interesting because, we talked earlier to Arturo about mentality and how important it is and how having a team with a good mentality, a team that's together, and how important that is, And then I saw an interview that Michael Bradley did, and one thing, besides the tactical stuff, he talked about how Bruce has brought this team together and how, from a mentality standpoint, this is the one thing that when we often talk about the U.S. national team, it was a team, even in the past, a team that was, there was the underdog going in, but that mentality and the ability to fight and never give up and all that, plus the quality that they have now. That's why, for me, I'm very impressed, is that this team is together. They're in it for all the right reasons. Everyone's fighting for each other. And I think this is the one thing that Bruce has done, is brought this group together again. And once they're together, it's a very difficult group to beat, especially in CONCACAF.
We're doing our show here from the Heineken Pub 97. And don't forget the watch parties as the U.S. takes on Costa Rica coming up on Friday. Also, you can catch Mexico and Panama. Then on Tuesday, September 5th, the USA against Honduras, and then Mexico against Costa Rica. Lots to talk about. Hopefully the Fire go to Montreal and get a victory, and we'll see exactly how things are going to go. Paul Tenorio, Frank Lopez, me, Fred Hubner. Thanks a lot to Arturo Alvarez for jumping on in. Let's go Men in Red and see if they can come away with points in Montreal. Thanks for watching Chicago Fire Weekly, brought to you by the Private Bank.